Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about and show how I have been working recently with explosions for games using Blender. And this is not the typical mushroom cloud explosion that you more or less get default out of the box from Blender, but more those sphere-shaped or aerial looking explosion that are sort of perfect to put on a flipbook, so you can render out this image sequence and just play it in your game engine. So I've been experimenting a bit with that recently, and I've come up with a few techniques that I think works quite okay and gives me the look that I've been looking for. So let's get started and see where we end up. So let's just start here with the default Blender scene and set this up. So I'm gonna start by adding a icosphere. So we're gonna need a domain and we're gonna need an emitter to do this. And we can just use a default cube as a domain. And then we have the emitter here. So let's just rename them, so we know what is what. And this is the domain. And I like to, because I'm gonna keep jumping back and forth quite a lot between these two, I sort of like to pin them. So let's do that. So I can add two more panels here, and let's just put the emitter on top, and let's put the domain below it. That's gonna save us a lot of clicking. Okay, so to set this up now, let's just turn this into a fluid flow, and let's turn the domain into a fluid domain. And there we should have something already. And let's just scale this domain up quite a bit. Maybe something like that. So here we have that typical default mushroom cloud looking effect that we don't really want to use to map this in a game world. At least not for the kind of games I am making. I want to have those ball-shaped explosions. So let's see how we can get to that kind of look from here. So I have the emitter, and we can change this to fire and smoke. That means we're going to simulate the fire too, which we can use also when we shade it. So we get a little bit of fire, which we don't see very much of, except in the beginning here, but we're going to deal with that. So it kind of fades out there right away. And the first thing to make sure we can get more like a sphere-shaped explosion is that we use the normal from our emitter. And also, of course, we have the flow behavior here. That is default set geometry. And geometry means that the actual object, the sphere we had here, is the actual fluid. If we change this to inflow, then instead means that the sphere emits fluid into our simulation instead of being the fluid. So we want to use inflow here. So now it keeps emitting. So it's very different to before, where it was the fluid. So, but we still have the mushroom cloud effect here, which we absolutely don't want. And the first thing to battle that is to, of course, use the normal as the velocity. And because then we're going to shoot in every direction where we have polygons aimed. So if I took a very high number here, we might see a little bit here. It goes out here in every direction, but it still keeps going upwards. So if I took a little bit lower here, we're gonna, because that's too strong. But with this value, we can control the effect a bit here. So if we shoot here in every direction, we still get the mushroom, but we see with this value, we have some control over the effect. Maybe put this up to 10. I mean, this is all these values. There's nothing here that I'm saying that that's the value to use. It's important to understand what every value does, and then you can tweak depending on the look you're going for. But maybe 10 is okay. So we shoot in every direction, but then we get the cloud up here. And that's about it for the emitter. What we're going to do right now anyway, we're going to work with this value a little bit later, but apart from that, we are pretty much done here. Now we're going to work with the domain that we pin down here. And the resolution is just to increase the quality, so we don't do that until it's time to render, because it slows it down. So we just keep it at 32, which is a nice preview value. Adaptive domain we can use if you remember render it. We just leave these, but we can, this gives us some randomness. So this one I usually give a little bit of boost, but let's save that. What we want to do is to use dissolve. And dissolve is for the smoke. So that is how long the smoke stays in the scene. So if we enable this, it's going to stay for 5 seconds. If I make it faster, we're going to see that the smoke, well, it goes away so fast we pretty much don't see it. So maybe we take it up a little bit more. So now we see the smoke coming around the explosion, but disappears quite quickly. But it still goes upwards. We just don't see it anymore because it dissolves. But if I were to turn it off, you still see that the effect goes up there. And to get rid of that, let's do that right away. That we can do on the field weights. And we can remove the physics calculation for gravity. And that's it. That's the very important number when you want to get rid of this mushroom cloud effect. So now we just shoot in every direction here and get much more that kind of ball-shaped, sphere-looking kind of explosion I'm looking for my game projects. And now if we re-enable this one, we get the explosion here. So we're a little bit closer now to get the shape that we're looking for, but the explosion is going on forever. And that is because we have, if we go back here to the emitter, that the emitter never stops emitting. And that is here, the surface emission. It keeps emitting with a constant value. And the higher this value is, the more effect we're going to get. And if we turn it down to 0, we have nothing that emits. So for an explosion, we want to have it emit when it starts and then not emit anything at all. So if we just start keyframing this one, and maybe we make another keyframe here at frame 8, and a few frames later, we take it down to 0. So if we then from frame 13, we get no more emission. So now we immediately have more timing that would fit for an explosion here. So far so good, and that was pretty much it for the emitter now. I'm not going to touch this anymore, but we can add some noise, because for an explosion we want it to be a bit chaotic. We need some randomness. and we don't have much randomness here right now. And we're going to do that by using noise. And we can pretty much keep the default values here, at least for this example. So immediately looks a little bit better. We get some more random movement. And then we have the fire. And the flame smoke controls how fast the flames go upwards. So we can reduce that a little bit. Because in this case, we kind of want every direction to be possible. So we want to limit everything that just keeps going up. And then we have the reaction speed, which is very important. This is how long the flames stay alive. So the shorter reaction speed, the longer they are going to live before they turn into only having smoke left. So if we play this now, about here, 13 was when we stopped emission, and at 40 or 20, the fire is gone. So if I were to put this one down to 0.2, see, then we keep the fire alive much longer, but that's too long, so maybe 0.4. That looks kind of okay. So we get the explosion here, and we get a little bit smoke here at the end. So far so good. And I think this pretty much is it for the fluid simulation. Now we just need this to get a bit more randomness and also explode into the scene, because it starts out as a big fireball here on frame 1, which we don't want. So what we can do here is that we can first of all give it some more randomness, and we can do that very easily by adding a modifier to the emitter to displace it a little bit with some noise. So we can first give it some more polygons. So we have something to distort or displace. And we can then add some displacement here. And we're going to move the fluid to be last. And now we can just create a texture. Shows any of these noise textures. We can go with the clouds and just size it up. And this should get us some more random. And this can control how chaotic we want the explosion to be. So this would be like crazy if I were to turn this one back on here, the rendering here. So we don't want it to go too wild, because that's going to look weird, I think. So maybe we stay somewhere around size here, and we can animate this value if we want to give it a little bit more chaos in the beginning, and then let it fade out. So that's it for some more randomness to this explosion. And the second thing I want to do is to make it start small and quickly come up in size. So while this now looks quite nice and random, we can animate this just to make it a little bit more interesting. And I think this animation is going to be around 50 frames. So let's just a little bit more space here. And we can start here at this size and then let it over time Oops, so there we go. So we started this size, and then we just go up here and increase the size a little bit. So there we go. There we have some more randomness to it. And finally, let's just scale this one down on the first frame a lot. And then very quickly, maybe in 3 or 4 frames, 3 frames, we scale it back up. And there I think we have it. So we have got rid of the mushroom effect, and we have this nice fireball coming up here. And if I now we don't have to see the emitter anymore. So this doesn't look too bad. Now let's increase the quality. And oops, sorry, I had actually pinned it here. There. If I just go up to 64, still gonna see it. And I want to take it up even further, maybe 256 to get really good quality. And I might do that and pause the video while that calculates. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to let this calculate through here. All right, so that took a while, but we're done. And here we have the simulation, and just need to do a little bit of shading work on it so we can render it. And shading can be quite simple actually, and you need to use a volume shader here, principled volume, and we're gonna plug that one into here. We get rid of that one, and let's go to preview, and I think I'm using Eevee. Let's change that to cycles. Change to cycles, and let's get to some density, maybe 200. There we go. So let's shade this a bit, and to keep it really simple, we just need to get the attribute, and there are a few different attributes baked into this simulation, and the one we want to use here is the flames. Flame, I think it is. No, S. Flame. And let's control it with the ramp and the multiply. Ramp let us control where we want the fire and where we want smoke to be, and multiply let us control how strong we want the effect to be. So let's plug this into the emission strength. And then we need some color. And if you want to have it a bit more stylistic, you can use a ramp for that too, and go from some white to some yellow to some orange to some red or black. Or you can just keep it simple and use the black body, and which gives us quite an okay result right away. But we need a stronger temperature. 2000 should be about okay. And here we can bring up the smoke. And here we can bring up the fire. And here we can bring up the strength. And here we can take up and down the density. So maybe we put the selfie around here, 150, and give this a bit more contrast. Something like this could most likely work. We could actually bring this one up quite a bit. Maybe a little bit too much. But yeah, I think we're getting somewhere here. So I think this could do it for shading. Of course, you can keep tweaking this how much you want to find the look you're looking for, but usually I think you can keep it quite simple and it usually looks quite good. Or you can take down a ramp and plug that one in here to make a more stylistic look. And then go for some yellowish. Come on. Do some orange. And get a little bit more control over the coloring, but black body is a good choice for some quick, to get something up and going quick, but keep tweaking it. So yeah, I think I like this one. So here we have an explosion and it's a round shape, not a mushroom. So we get this nice aerial, and now we pretty much just have to render it out. And I would use I would render it to a flipbook in this case. I'm not going to do that now because it will take forever, but I think this is enough to show and give you some ideas how we can do something similar, or use this as a starting point for the kind of explosions you might be going for. So that's it for now. Take care and see you in the next one. Cheers!